Alright, so I'm gonna do another video for this project, the GPA Calculator, and I have to admit it was definitely more difficult than the last, and there are a lot of small steps in between. I did two versions actually. One of them was the way I thought I could do it, and even that was wasn't great, and oh, this, and I yeah, even that wasn't easy. Nonetheless, I'm gonna assume once again that you've gotten these three files. You've gotten your main. It could be blank. That's fine. It and you've gotten the student file. You've gotten the CSV reader, and you'll need the. Remember, there's a new one on Blackboard to get right. Just copy and paste it into the CSV because otherwise you won't get the cell as a vector. Um, and I'm going to assume once again that you have uh, so you should have at least this file, this file, this file, right? And main.cpp. Okay, so those are your basic four files. These could be blank. All right, so I'm gonna use the one that I'm gonna show you the one that the professor gave us. This here, I made some changes to some of the variable names so I could remember them better. But nonetheless, he's using what's called a data structure, and to hold the information from the courses. Um, so in this case, he's declaring the variables here. All right. I don't even think I used this, so that could be out. And I'm using course name, score, and credit. In my student class, I have to double check these methods, which one is private, which one is public, but for now I'm just going to use this. Um, so here, this is one, this is a new one. I'm going to use a vector of courses. That is a vector of the data structure course, right? So this is the same as this. So I'm using a vector similar to you have vector string, vector, whatever. This is a vector of a data structure because it can contain different data types. So like if you did a vector of strings, you'd only be able to push strings. Here you can use double, int, and string, double, and int. So that's one of the nice things about using this data structure vector. Um, all right, so double, this is the data type that I'm going to return here. For my calculate grade, I'm going to pass the score as an int in there. Basically, I'm going to pass this score into this function and then get a double result. And we'll see that's like the 3.5 and the 4 or the 2.5, whatever it is. Here, I'm declaring some extra variables that I'm going to use. And I'll show you where these come in. These are going to really come in handy later on. Once we get to pull in the data. All right, print info, that's going to print out all the information, and this is going to calculate my average GPA, my complete GPA, right? Taking these variables here. All right. I think I didn't. I don't think I even used course weight, but we'll see how it goes. All right. So this is my student. This is defining my structure, my default structure for the student class. All right. It's the same. It's this ID, first name, last name, and the vector of courses. Right. That's this vector here. Okay. So that's that. Here I'm gonna pass the information from the main or use main. Pass the information from the CSV file, and I'm gonna put it into these parameters here. So my parameters are for ID, first name, last name, and vector of courses, which is this, and already declared up here. Again, I'm just gonna this is the data. This is the format that it has to come in, and it's gonna come, and this is going to come in this. So when main passes the function to this vector, it's gonna come in this with these values. Okay. and then I'm going to push whatever's passed here, I'm going to put them to the variables that I have here, right? Okay, so that's that. Now, before I get to print info, let us look at main.cpp. Now I'm declaring all my variables at the top because I don't want to have to go searching for them if I need to make a change. There are other ways that you can declare variables up here. I think those make them global, which means that you don't have to declare. You can use the same variable, or you can pull the same variable from like different parts. But anyway, we're not getting into that too details. Vector of students, that will be in this format. That's this, creating the information so I could pass to this. So I need 4 parameters. I need 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll pass those through the vector of students. Vector of courses, that's this. I'm declaring this. I have to pass this number of parameters, 3 parameters, into this vector, right? And they're going to be different data types. Vector string, get cell as vector. That's we'll get the cell as a vector. That's going to pull the 3 values within the cell as a vector of strings. All right, so I did this the last one. This is just an underline. That's it. All right, so here, this is where the magic begins. I mean, the magic already began before, but so here I'm going to read. Let's see. I had, okay, here. So here I'm declaring my CSV reader to pull from students using comma, int ID. These are some extra variables that I'm going to use to make for some shortcuts, and I'll show you why I'm using them later on. String, and this is just to pull the first name, last name. Okay, so here I'm going to get the row count from I'm going to get row count from the CSV file, and for each row in there I'm going to do this. I'm going to get the ID, that's this ID here, this int ID here, right, is equal to temp CSV reader gets L 0. So that's the first column in the first row, and for each row is going to do, each of these is going to do this. Here CSV reader, this is just getting this getting the first name, last name. This is simple. These 3 are pretty simple. The problem becomes when you gotta pull data from those semicolon cells, and then pass them into the courses, and then it's like a vector of it's kind of like a vector of vectors, and trust me, it became really weird really fast. So here is going to int n, that number of courses. This I'm pulling from here because I said, you know what, if I want more courses I could always add, and I'm using a for loop in here because I could always increase the number of courses to the right of to the right column in the file, meaning that I can always add another course in this file. Like I could just add another column here, right? Change that number of courses, and I don't have to do anything within my code. So it's going to be easier for me if I need to expand on this, right? So for all the columns, so this is gonna go from all the columns. I'm saying for each of those columns, each of these, actually let me open this file and keep it open. Each of these columns here, right? For each row, for this cell, this one, and then for each row is gonna pull this, right? So for each of these columns, I want you to separate out this value in here, right? Oops, what did I do? There we go. CSV cell, that's the CSV cell, the vector of strings, that's this here. This vector is equal to my reader get cell as string vector row, which is this row 0, and if each time that's going to increment, so it'll automatically move to the next row. Column start, that's this column start here. I'm starting from column 3. That is this. I'm starting from column 0, 1, 2, 3. I'm starting from column 3. Alright? So I'm starting from column 3. Where am I? Here. I'm starting from column 3. And I want to increment each column. So I'm just going to take n0. So column plus n. So once this increments, automatically it will move to the next column. And I'm separating it by the semicolon. So here I'm just going to take each part of that, each part of the of this here, and I'm going to put it into this vector here of courses CS. Alright, so course CS is equal to course 0, 1, 2, because that's where it's coming from. Okay, so it's coming as a vector of strings, so I'm getting the vector of strings here, right? But I want to convert this, because remember in courses we have 3 different data types. We have in courses we have string, double, and int. So here it is going to be a regular string. This ATOF is converting it to float. Remember to add this at the back of it, because otherwise it wouldn't work. And then ATOI, ATOI and STOI is just different versions of C++, some kind of thing with a compiler. But I guess this might be the safer one to use, just to make sure the code compiles on his computer. So here I'm converting it to float, converting it to int, and passing it into courses. Here I'm passing it into courses, so I'm pushing back CS into the vector of courses, right, that we defined earlier. That is this vector here. So it's going to do that for each of these columns. So that's what I'm saying. That's why I'm putting it this way. So each of these, so I don't have to write 4 different pieces of code. I just did 1 piece of code, have it increment, and that's it. And then it's going to loop through, get all of that, and then push it into courses. Now I want to take that information along with all the other pieces of information in this file. So I want to take ID, last name, first name, and each of these vectors now that each of these that have now become vector of courses, and I'm going to pass them into a vector of students. Alright, now this part here is tricky, because I'll show you what happens if you don't include this. If you don't clear this vector of courses for each row, because let's say, so it's going to do this row, and then it's going to do this row, and then it's going to do this row, and if you don't clear that vector of courses, it piles up, and I'll show you what happens. So here, if I just rebuild this and then run it, look at that. Are you kidding me? Essentially what is happening here is that for each of these rows, it is increasing the number of columns that are there. So for the first one is going to be 4, then the next one is 8, I think, and then you have this huge vector in the end. Alright, that's just crazy. So yeah, you really want to clear the vector before you continue. So let's do this. Let us put the piece of code back again and recompile and run. It should give me my correct information. But this part really had me. Like, this really had me for a while, because I had to draw on a piece of whiteboard to figure out where the data is going, what is happening where, and so on, before I could actually figure out that, okay, it is building a vector, and every time it moves through, it just keeps adding more and more information to that vector. Okay, it just keeps adding information, it just keeps adding and adding and adding. So that's basically pushing the information to the student class. And then we're going to print info, and we're going to move now to print info. All right. Now we got that, we got that, we got that. Let's go to print info. All right. So here, same thing. I'm just going to do like this is just constant count stuff. I'm just making a space here. ID. I'm putting this so that it can have the same effect as what the professor has on his ID thing. I'm just gonna count here. I'm just showing you that you can do it multiple ways. You can either do it like this, or you can just count this here. Now, someone asked me with a text message on how to use set width and align. So here, IOMANIP. You have to include IOMANIP on this here, and then you're going to use set width this way. So you want to align course. Everything in this part here is going to be used to align the word course, right? So the first one, I'm setting my width to 15, and then I'm aligning it left. I could align right, and I don't know, I don't think that there's a center alignment, but there's, well, I'm not sure, maybe there is, but I'm aligning it to the left, and I'm going to do this for each one, each of these headings that I want to align. So here, I'm aligning, next I'm aligning score and grade, and for each one I'm aligning at 10, setting the width to 10. But then this just basically doing this dashed line here. Now this part is also a bit complicated in a way. You have to really think it through in order to get what you want. All right. I declared this up at the top, course points. I think it's a double. Let me see. Let me just make sure I'm telling you the right thing. I declared course points. Here we go. I declared course points as a double. So what I'm saying here, and this is where also it gets tricky, because it's a vector of data structure. It's a vector of data structure. There are some online articles that are going to tell you, okay, so you could do, you could call your, you could call a vector of vectors this way. Like you could call a vector of vectors in, let's say, II, right? That's if you want to call a vector of vectors. But in our case, we're calling a vector of data structure. So all this is saying, right, is it's passing. So I'm going to get the calculate grid later down here. But I'm passing whatever the result is with this here. Whatever the result is in this operation here. I'm passing it to calculate grid. I'm taking that result as a double, and I'm going to multiply it by this part here. So let me break that down for you. Alright, so I have course points as a double. Calculate grade, in which case it's going to take, here I'm passing a piece of information. Now what am I passing? I'm passing vector of courses I. Vector of courses, in this case, in the first case, is going to be 0, and then it's going to increment, so it's going to be 0, 1, 2, 3, Vector of courses I dot course score. Where does course score come from? Now remember we said earlier, right, that vector of students here is, it contains a vector of courses. All right, so vector of students contains a vector of courses, and vector of courses contains course score. You see that? It contains course name, which we'll call later on, and it contains this. So those are the three things that it contains there. So I'm calling it here. So I'm saying within the vector of courses, right? Oh, wait. Actually, vector of courses is pulling here too, right? That's actually from this. Because I'm passing the vector of courses here. I'm passing it over into this. And I'm making it into this. So it moves from here to here and then to this. So now I could call it directly using this. So vector of courses, which is this, I dot course score, coming from what I showed you earlier, multiplied by vector of courses I course credit, right? So I'm gonna pass whatever this score is here, I'm going to pass it into calculate grade. I'm going to get the double and multiply it here. Like I said, a bit complicated, but you'll see it now. So depending on the score, let me just run this and you'll see how it works. So depending on this score here, let's say this person has 7 to 9 here, right? 7 to 9. That score, 7 to 9, will fall somewhere here, 7 to 9. So that's 2 points, right? So that's 2 points multiplied by the number of credits, which is 8. So 2 points multiplied by the number of credits, 8. Sorry, number of credits 4, and that will give me 8. So you see it's giving me my 2 points here on the grade. Now, I don't know, his program ran without a letter. So I didn't even bother running it. I didn't even bother returning a grade letter. Because, I mean, let me see. Let me just make sure. Because when I ran his program, it didn't give me a grade letter. I mean, I don't know if he requires a grade letter. So here, like he has grade, that's just the number that is being returned. Okay. So I'm returning 2 on this one. Now, you know, there was something that I wanted to check as I'm here. I wanted to show you that if you use, again, if you use the OR here, right? If you use the OR operator, everyone should get A, and then everyone should really get full. Their average GPA should be 4. If I don't get 4, then there's something wrong with my code, and I'll have to figure that out. So my average GPA for okay, good. So it does what I wanted it to do. My last line here, average GPA 4. Everyone should get A, everyone should get 4. So it doesn't matter how many credits. You see, it doesn't matter how many credits. It's just like, because you're going to divide and your total GPA is going to be 4 anyways. Okay. So let me just change this back to and. Alright. So it's going to pull, so let me get back to this. So when I pass this piece of score here, right? When I pass this score here, taking vector, of course, is I dot course score. So I'm passing the number 7 to 9 into calculate grade. Oh, I didn't compile it. Oh, wait, let me compile this. Yeah, give it a second. So, here. So when I pass 7 to 9, I'm going to get this grade. When I pass 786, it's going to return me. So that's the number that this is returning here. So I'm going to keep it in this. So here, it's passing this. I'm getting this. And then I'm going to multiply it by the course credit. That is credit. So I'm going to take 2 by 4, and that's going to give me 8. Course points equal 8. Okay, so here, same thing, set width and alignment. And same thing here again. So I'm going to pull the information from the courses, vector of courses, course name, course score, grade, grade. So I'm just going to pass this back again. So here, I'm going to get calculate grade, pass this information back again so that I can get the number. That's how I got the 2 and the 3.5 and all of that. Vector of courses dot this, and then course points, which is calculated here. So again, like I said, this might be a bit thing. I mean, it took me a very long time to figure this shit out. All right. Now, think about it this way. How are you going to sum? How are you going to get the running total of all those things here? How are you going to get the running total of grade and points? How are you going to get that? Or credit? Actually, you don't need to run a total of grade. You need to run a total of credit and points. How are you going to get that? So here, this is what I'm getting. This is what I'm doing. I'm taking my course running points, and that will be equal to this plus the course points. You know what I mean? So I'm keeping a running total of the course points. Here, same thing for credits. All right. So whatever this value is equal to, it's equal to this plus this. So I'm just going to keep a running total of that value. And then set precision, set precision. Oh, this is actually in IOmanip. Because otherwise, if I don't use set precision, what will happen is that it'll give me, let me show you what will happen. It'll give me a lot of decimal places that I don't want. So let me just compile this and run it again. Um, so you see the number of decimal places that I have. GPA is equal to that. I'm just going to use set precision, and that's going to whatchamacallit, get it to 3. Excuse me. All right, and here calculate GPA. I have course points and running. So these two values here. I'm going to pass those two values into this so that it can calculate my GPA. So I'm going to return this as a double. This. I mean, I could set precision here too. That way I don't have to do it in the count. So, but I'm passing those two information here, the sum of the points and the sum of the credit, and then just divide this, and then I'll return this. And I think that's about it for the codes. Like I said, I mean, this is probably the most efficient way that I found, and that, I mean, his thing that it was pretty efficient. Other than that, I'll have to use. I would have had to use mine, which is in here, I believe. Yeah. If I use mine, it'll give me the same result. Wait. Is this it? Let me see. Yeah, this is the one that I did. The only thing is, I have to do this for each one. I have more variables. I have to do this here, right? And then I have to reference each one, like each course, one by one. You know what I mean? That doesn't really, that's not that doesn't seem efficient to me. In addition to that, I'm using more variables here, and you're passing vectors. So you don't need to do this. You don't need to do any of these. I'm just showing you the difference between using, and this will run. I'm pretty sure it'll run. Yeah, here. So I don't have the same number of people in here. But yeah, it's just that you're going to be using a lot more variables. I hope that this helped. Let me know if you have any questions. All right, thank you.